Combining the stunning scenery and the romance of the rails, this is the ticket to high adventure. We'll take in natural wonders, from the wide-open panorama of a vintage dome car, the elegance of the American Orient Express, and the restored glory of the Grand Canyon Railway. While you might think of great train rides as something only experienced abroad, we've uncovered 6 classic trips to America's national parks. Over the next hour, it's all aboard. At the turn of the 20th century, it was the railroads that opened up America's first national parks. To lure visitors to these faraway places, they marketed them as the ultimate travel destinations. Among them, the Great Northern Railway forged its tracks west to Glacier National Park in Montana. Our first great train ride, Amtrak's Empire Builder, runs along the original route of the Great Northern. A journey that begins at Chicago's Union Station.
The Empire Builder remains the only train in the United States, main line, that will take you from a major American city direct to the gates of a national park, without any other transfer and without any other difficulty.
With everyone on board, we're ready to roll. Leaving the Windy City behind to head to Big Sky Country, the cab of the locomotive is the best seat in the house. The #1 lesson on this line, with a speed limit of 79 miles an hour, is safety first.
Roger, Amtrak train number 7 has been okayed to go through Foreman Wagner's limits. Maximum speed is 50 miles an hour.
The conductor and the engineer keep in constant contact. While the engineer operates the locomotive, the conductor takes care of the entire train on this 2-day, over 1,500-mile journey to Glacier. From the Sightseer Lounge, the Farm Belt breezes by.
Most people are out here because they want to relax and see the country. You got beautiful views, you got the windows, you got the ambience of the train.
What's your name? My name is Sean.
And there's plenty of time to meet other passengers, some who are riding the rails for the first time.
This is ours too.
Oh, yeah. I was a little bit apprehensive, but then once I started riding, I thought, you know, what a great way to travel. It's so beautiful. I've met so many wonderful people. I couldn't count on 2 hands how many people I've met.
Train travel definitely has a charm that flying lacks. Flying is kind of a fast food style of travel. You get there, you get back, but it doesn't really have anything to it. The train gives you the views, it gives you the natural beauty.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? This is your dining car attendant. If you're holding a 6 o'clock dinner reservation, please make your way to the dining car at this time. Your tables are ready.
The dining room occupies the top deck of one superliner. With limited space, sharing a table is a necessity.
Hi, how are you?
But people on a train don't seem to mind.
West Palm Beach.
As the small towns whiz by, they bring back memories of James J. Hill, the founder of the Great Northern Railway. He was nicknamed the Empire Builder for all the towns and businesses that sprung up along the route.
He built the first transcontinental railroad across the northern edge of America, the northern tip of America. It was a non-land grant railway, so every piece of land, every spike, every tie was paid for by private entities. And James J. Hill was a very successful railroad entrepreneur.
I do have some brochures that I can give to you.
Along the way to this quintessential railroad park, interpretive rangers hop aboard for talks on the history of the region.
I'd like to welcome all of you this afternoon to the Empire Builder. On our trip today, we're going to be going through some very beautiful parts of the country, and we're going to be seeing Glacier National Park.
It's almost like the history of America that you're going through, and that's definitely a part of the charm of it.
As the train makes stops on the Great Plains, you have to take a moment and marvel at the beauty of the flatlands. In the distance, the Rocky Mountains line the horizon.
It's the Purple Mountain majesty that you've always heard about. It's the experience of seeing the West for the very first time. And from that point forward, it's one of the most magnificent trips that you could ever possibly imagine. It's really inspiring.
The tracks run along the boundary of this park that brims with railroad history. Our first stop, East Glacier. Passengers can walk to the Glacier Park Lodge across from the station, one of a network of lodges and chalets built by the Great Northern Railway. It was Lewis Hill, the son of the empire builder James J. Hill, who had a grand plan to compete with rival railroads.
Lewis Hill fell in love with Glacier National Park and saw this as his opportunity to match the Northern Pacific at Yellowstone, or match the Southern Pacific at the Gateway to Yosemite, or match the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe at Grand Canyon. This would be his great national park that would attract people from all over the country and all over the world.
The Great Northern threw its resources into the Rockies to create a little Switzerland in America. To fill up these grand accommodations, Lewis Hill lured wealthy visitors with exciting marketing campaigns.
And he said to the American tourist, go west. See America first. Be patriotic. Be an American. Don't go to Europe and spend your hard-earned dollars abroad. Come see your country first. And it was a magnificent campaign, and it was a magnificent construction project. And those great hotels remain to this day, and again, give you the flavor of what it was like to be somebody who loved your country and believed in the American dream.
He also dazzled visitors with a series of rustic backcountry chalets.
So the vision is simultaneously grandiose, big hotels for arrival, and then smaller, tasteful, modest hotels to give you the wilderness flair, and again, a recreation of Switzerland in the American wilderness. We still have those grand old buildings today because they became great historic treasures and great American treasures.
It's an hour-and-a-half ride from East to West Glacier through some extraordinary country. At the Belton stop, you'll find another throwback to an earlier era. The Belton Chalet was the first hotel built by the railroad in 1910. The Belton proves scale doesn't have to be grand to make a place special. This quaint, comfortable stopover right outside the park had fallen into disrepair when owners Cass Still and Andy Baxter bought it in 1998.
It had a great love by the community who had hoped for decades that it would be brought back to life. And we just felt a connection here, and that it is a beautiful place that was worth saving.
Using the original building and furniture as a guide, the Belton was meticulously restored. Today, guests are welcomed with a turn-of-the-century charm. The roadside deck is a popular place for locals and tourists to unwind and watch the trains pass by. And there are several levels to take in the scenery.
It's a very personal place, and people feel that personal connection to history here and to the park.
As the train twists and turns through the park, passengers get a view of the machine. 2 giant locomotives with 4,200 horsepower diesel engines pull the cars. And for the true train buff, the Essex stop is a working freight yard. In 1939, the Great Northern built the Isaac Walton Inn as a place to house its workers. Today, it's been converted into a hotel open year-round that preserves a railroad past.
If you go take the train to Isaac Walton, you get to see all the memorabilia downstairs and around the bar, where all the avalanches have occurred and all of train wrecks that have occurred. But it's also, you get to stay at one of these lodges which was built for all the railroad workers. So you're right in part of history.
And for a train buff's dream come true, you can spend the night in one of 4 colorful cabooses. These relics make snug quarters, like a compact hotel suite with a unique vantage point to watch all the trains pass through Essex. The Empire Builder is also a major means of getting around this over 1 million acre park. Where you don't need a car to see the sights. You can take another kind of historic ride in a 1930s red bus designed for touring, with rollback tops to take in the grandeur.
These buses are rare. I don't believe America, the continental America, can even account for 100 of these. And we have more than a third of that right here in Glacier National Park, still in service. I really feel they're a national treasure.
A national treasure, just like the train that brought you here to visit a true gem, Glacier National Park. National Park's Great Train Rides travels to Denali National Park in Alaska. A 6 million acre preserve of breathtaking beauty. Topped off by Mount McKinley, the continent's tallest mountain. Great Train Ride number 2 is on the Alaska Railroad's Denali Star. Unlike the lower 48 states, in Alaska, these blue and yellow cars are the lifeline of a vast land, where 3/4 of the population still lives along the tracks.
If you're bound for Wasilla, Talkeeton, and Denali Park, Nenana, or Fairbanks, all aboard!
This trip to Denali National Park begins in Anchorage. Alaska's biggest city is the gateway to the wilds. It's a 356-mile journey between Anchorage and Fairbanks. On board, there's ample seating and big picture windows to see the wilderness. In the Dome car, you don't need a reservation. It's first come, first served.
The Denali Star is really growing to be a wonderful train. For a railroad bus, we have coaches that were built back in the 50s and been refurbished to fit our needs. We've got a wonderful dining car and great dining staff.
The busy galley serves up a regional specialty.
Hey, Alaska Ranger sauce. With a breakfast burrito, some fruit for the palate, potatoes.
Holland America's deluxe cars tag along to bring their cruise ship passengers to the interior for a sail and rail package. They travel in luxury, outfitted with their own kitchen and private dining cars. Since Alaskans love to show off their state, during the summer months, students act as tour guides.
Aloha! This is Honolulu Creek. That little bridge that we just crossed put us halfway between Fairbanks and Anchorage.
Up front, It's a single track across a vast expanse. Yet travel has come a long way from the beginning. Building this railroad through the Alaskan Territory was a monumental task.
Basically, it took an act of Congress to get the railroad built in Alaska. It couldn't be done by private enterprise because it was just too expensive to try and build tracks across the wilderness.
It meant creating infrastructure. Coal mines and towns sprung up. At the peak of construction, 4,500 men were clearing land and laying track, a job once compared to building the pyramids.
They were engineering marvels all along the way. They had to blast 7 tunnels through rock. They had to build over 8 miles of bridges, and it was an amazing feat when you consider the geography and the landscape of the state.
It took 8 years and the influence of 3 presidents. In 1923, President Warren Harding drove the Golden Spike to officially open the railroad. A railroad to a new frontier. People can now experience the Alaskan interior. The train pulls into Denali Station inside the boundaries of the park 7.5 hours after leaving Anchorage. From the depot, the Visitors Center is the home base to make plans to sightsee or explore.
In the park, there are quite a few trails right in the front country that they can do some walking and hiking on. They can get on the shuttle bus and tour buses and go out into the park and see all the wildlife and the tremendous scenery.
A lone road leads to the heart of this enormous park. Since private vehicles are only allowed on the first 15 miles of it, the park bus system is the way to see the sights. Tundra, rivers, and plenty of wildlife. And if you're lucky, Mount McKinley, the jewel of the Alaskan Range. It is Alaska though, rain or shine. And in the summer, this mountain is visible only 1/3 of the time. Yet Denali was founded as a wildlife preserve. And even if it's overcast, the animals don't seem to mind the weather. The Denali Star transports some 50,000 visitors to and from the park each year. On the only train in the U.S. built by the government and owned by a state.
It's really got the spirit of what Alaska is about, which is the spirit of perseverance, the spirit of being against all odds, and of building something out of really a very vast and wild landscape.
National Park's Great Train Rides continues on the Alaska Railroad to a national park mostly made of ice. For the 3rd Great Train Ride, we'll hop aboard the Coastal Classic, an adventure all its own, to Kenai Fjords National Park.
Well, the Coastal Express is probably one of our best train rides. It's a lot more scenery than going north, beautiful waterfalls, and the whole works.
The route begins in Anchorage and winds its way south to Seward, leaving Alaska's biggest city bright and early.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome aboard the Alaska Railroad. My name is Megan, and I'll be your tour guide for our trip today. Looks like we'll be heading into Seward in just about 4 hours, and we have a beautiful scenic ride for you today.
A scenic ride with comfortable seating and casual dining. A hearty breakfast is more like a picnic. Sweeping south to the Alaska coast, a stretch of Cook Inlet called the Turnagain Arm is famous for extreme tides that fluctuate up to 30 feet. And bring binoculars and cameras. There's plenty to see along the way. Radios are a primary communication tool. On this train, the engineer is on the lookout for anything wild.
Wow, it's beautiful.
They'll radio it back to me, and then I'm able to tell the people on the train what side to look for the animals.
The coastline meets the snow-capped Kenai Mountains as the tracks lead to higher country, where everything is green, thanks to the 200 inches of rain and snow each year. To get through the mountains, a series of tunnels are carved into the rock. And be prepared to stop. Since the line from Seward to Fairbanks is a single track, to let another train get by, one train has to pull over on a section called a siding. There's no automatic switcher. The brakeman does it the old-fashioned way. It's onward through the wonderland of glassy lakes, waterfalls, and glaciers. The end of the line is Seward, just outside the eastern boundary of Kenai Fjords National Park. Nowadays, this rail hub on Alaska's southern coast is a port of call.
Let's take our pack off, Sabrina.
From here, passengers link up with a cruise to the park. It's all aboard again as the Star of the Northwest heads out to Resurrection Bay. The 607,000-acre park includes coastline and barrier islands.
Kenai Fjords was established in 1978 as a national monument to protect the Harding Ice Field, the largest ice field totally contained in the United States. In 1980, it was turned into a national park to help protect the coastal ecosystem that feeds off of the Harding Ice Field.
Teeming with marine wildlife, these frigid waters and rock caves are home to two distinctly different types of puffins and other winged creatures. And there she blows. A humpback whale and her calf put on an awe-inspiring show. The calf leaps into the air to the thrill of the crowds. Beyond wildlife, Kenai Fjords National Park is a giant meeting of mountains, sea, and ice, where tidewater glaciers flow and the sights are superb. And the best way to get there is a unique sail and rail journey to these natural wonders. The sight of the signature blue and gold Streamliner cars moving through the landscape is a train aficionado's dream. It harkens back to a time when travel to a national park was high adventure, reserved for the rich. Today, the only train in the U.S. that offers the true luxury of those early days is our fourth great train ride, the American Orient Express. The destination? The Northwest Rockies, AOE's popular route to Glacier, Yellowstone, and Grand Teton National Parks. This first-class excursion begins in Seattle. Before passengers set foot on the train, the crew gears up to provide impeccable service. it takes a team effort to distribute the equivalent of a semi full of supplies over a quarter-mile of cars. These cars, dating back to the 40s and 50s, cost plenty to refurbish and maintain.
We are basically 17 different cars, 85 feet long, each one $1 million to $2 million apiece, depending on which car it is, that has a phenomenal amount of moving parts. We have 4 mechanics on board that their full-time job is fixing the handles, putting the trim up, putting the shades up, making sure the doors close. We got steel wheels, we got AC generators, and maintenance on that is difficult. And it's an effort of love. I mean, there's a lot of work in that.
The American Orient Express spared no expense to bring these relics back to life, and no detail is overlooked. By the time the guests board this regal train, the cars shine as much as the white glove service. The train is a living museum of modernized period pieces that once served the nation's most storied rail lines. The last car is an American Orient Express treasure, the New York Observation Car, with its wraparound windows and plush seating. It once carried passengers from the Big Apple to the windy city of Chicago and hosted Hollywood's elite.
Everyone from Cary Grant to Jackie Gleason to John Wayne all traveled on these trains and these very cars.
As the train weaves its way across the Great Northwest on lines laid in the late 1800s and early 1900s, it's as if you've stepped back in time, with one surprise. To keep a modern pace, the American Orient Express is pulled by 2 Amtrak diesel-powered engines. And on this trip, leave your diet at the station.
The cuisine on the train is the main focal point because we don't have a pool table, we don't have a pool, we don't have a lot of other options, so we really focus on our food.
Menus feature a regional twist, like mussels from Seattle's Puget Sound.
Well, we try to deal with local purveyors as much as we can so we can get the freshest ingredients.
Preparing a gourmet meal on a train has been compared to cooking in a Winnebago barreling down a highway at 60 miles an hour.
When we start rocking, there's little tricks that you have to know to keep, the food, where it's supposed to be.
To serve its 100 passengers, a staff of 50 looks out for their every desire.
From Western Montana.
I remember one night there was a gentleman that wanted bananas and our delivery wasn't until the next morning. We stopped the train at about 10 o'clock at night and we had one of our porters run to a gas station to buy some bananas.
Anything to make the guests happy. The first stop on the Northwestern Rockies tour brings us back to Glacier National Park in Montana. Where passengers link up with Sun Tours to see the sights along the Going to the Sun Road. An awe-inspiring ride with stops to take in a forest of cedar and hemlock, waterfalls, and high alpine meadows as the grandeur opens up before you. While the passengers are off enjoying the park, the train moves from west to east Glacier and the crew gets rolling.
When we get to a destination and the passengers get off, they're like, oh, all you guys get to rest. And we're all like, oh yeah. But in fact, when the passengers get off is when we really have to pick up the pace.
The kitchen bustles as cooks prepare for dinner. Pullman sleeper cars are made ready for the night. This hotel on wheels even has its own laundry for linens. And when guests return, the service begins all over again as this premier land cruise heads south. Along the way, historians and naturalists add insight to the countryside. And you can reserve a prime seat for dinner with a dome car view. The next destination, Idaho Falls, a starting point for exploring both Yellowstone and Grand Teton National Parks. A tour of Yellowstone begins at Geyser Basin. The world's largest concentration of geysers are found in this first national park. Among them, Old Faithful is most regular. Yet there are 10,000 other thermals, mud pots, and hot springs that spew and steam. And there's more.
It's a great way not only to just see one park, but you can go to a park, you can enjoy a park for a few days, get back on the train, and actually the next morning wake up and you're ready to visit the second park.
The final stop of this grand tour is Grand Teton National Park. The crystal clear waters of the Snake River lure a variety of wildlife to its shores. Although you might be tempted to gaze at the mountain majesty, during the summer, Grand Teton is the perfect place to float.
Good morning.
You can opt to turn the land cruise into a boat cruise around a glacial carved lake.
And after a day in the great outdoors, everyone returns in time for a farewell get-together on the American Orient Express, where the service keeps on coming.
People can relax and enjoy the mode of travel, and the mode of travel is part of the vacation in itself. You're enjoying the ride as much as the destination, and that I think is very special.
Deluxe trips to national parks bring back a glint of gold from the once gilded age of American rail travel. Aboard a rolling 5-star hotel. It was the call of the train whistle that once drew Americans west, beckoning them to see the frontier. Our 5th great train ride on the Grand Canyon Railway begins with a blast straight from the past. The destination, one of the wonders of the world. What better way to get there than by steam train? The trip starts in Williams, Arizona, where you can still get your kicks from Route 66. America's fabled Mother Road passes straight through town. Off the main drag, as passengers wait for the train, there's a Wild West show. While the 6-shooter once ruled a land of lawmen and outlaws, a modern-day sheriff carries a cell phone. And there's plenty of time for pictures before boarding. The station's just steps away.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the Grand Canyon Railway departure to the Grand Canyon will take place in a few minutes. All aboard!
The train travels north on a spur line off the main east-west tracks of the Santa Fe Railway. A trip that dates back to the turn of the 20th century. The 65-mile journey is a party on wheels, with several classes and classic cars to choose from. Coach seats are bench style in Pullman cars from the Roaring '20s, where the cast of The Shootout gets ready to liven things up. The club car has a mahogany bar in the center to saunter up to. And there's a rolling shop of souvenirs. Passengers in first class enjoy captain-style seats with big picture windows and their very own cowboy serenade. Upstairs, a double-decker dome car offers a bird's-eye view of the high desert. At the rear of the train, you can ride like the railroad barons of the past in the comfort of parlor class. This cozy car, called the Chief, once took passengers from New York to Miami. The Chief has its own private observation platform to watch the desert fade into the distance. On board, there are many vantage points to get a view of the engine as it winds its way north through the biggest ponderosa pine forest in the U.S.
Steam tends to have a personality. It's a lot busier than a diesel. There's more going on. It's breathing, it's making noise.
Even from a distance, when it comes to a crossing, bystanders say they can feel the ground shake. And there's no computer here. A steam engine requires both skill and the teamwork of the fireman and engineer to operate it.
The fireman's controls are primarily for the boiler. That's the amount of oil going to the fire. He's controlling water going into the boiler and all of the auxiliaries that keep the steam supply up. Now the engineer, he's handling the levers that are the throttle and which emits steam to the cylinders.
Behind the engine, or locomotive, the tender carries the fuel and water. The trip takes 2 hours and 15 minutes, 45 minutes faster than it took in 1901. From the station, it's a short walk to the rim, where the view of this natural wonder is simply sublime.
It's great. It affects all humanity the same way. You're just overwhelmed with a sense of awe.
Along the rim, several landmarks were built by the railroad for a grand destination. One of the most visited spots, the Bright Angel Lodge, houses a small museum that pays tribute to Fred Harvey, a railroad tourism pioneer.
Fred Harvey was very fastidious in his approach to guest service. Guests were served fine foods on fine china in crystal, and he would present a sort of a high-end experience on the railway in the middle of nowhere.
On a deal that began with a handshake, the Fred Harvey Company created railroad stops called Harvey Houses, where passengers were served by uniformed waitresses called Harvey Girls. They became one of the legends of the West. In 1946, Judy Garland led an all-star cast in the movie about the Harvey Girls. With its reputation for fine service, the Santa Fe became one of the nation's most celebrated railways. Yet by the 60s, the demise of train travel closed down its Grand Canyon line. And in the 70s, they started to scrap the tracks. But the town of Williams couldn't let it go.
They knew what the Grand Canyon Railway could mean to them as a tourist line. So the town marshal went out and just arrested the contractors that were out there because they didn't have the appropriate permits.
Like a happy Hollywood ending of a classic Western, justice was served. The current owners of the Grand Canyon Railway stepped in to save the line. A labor of love that brought it back to life in 1989 and keeps it running today. A 50-man crew makes new parts and performs all kinds of mechanical magic.
We're using antique equipment, and it takes more upkeep. The technology that came along later we don't get the benefit of, but this is what our customers like to see. They like to see the way it was in the old days.
These vintage locomotives, weighing 155 tons, are giants of steel and smoke, In the firebox, fuel is burned to boil water to create steam to produce 2,000 horsepower. Every year, over 200,000 people take this train. While they relive a bit of history and revel in the scenery, the environment benefits too. Several thousand fewer cars visit the park annually, thanks to those who arrive via the Grand Canyon Railway. Our last great train ride is by no means least. We'll travel the West Coast aboard Amtrak's Coast Starlight on a route between Los Angeles and Seattle, where we'll discover 3 national parks:
the Santa Monica Mountains National Recreation Area, Crater Lake, and Mount Rainier.
All easy drives from the depots. The first park on the route is the world's largest urban national park, a recreation area that reaches from the heart of Los Angeles to the eastern end of the Santa Monica Mountains. Over 153,000 acres of beaches, mountains, flora, and fauna make up this unique ecosystem. And since it's Hollywood, it's appropriate that this park has a film set.
It is, under the National Park Service, a working movie ranch. That means we're still doing the same thing here that they've been doing for over 75 years, making movies, now making television, commercials. There's a connection between the American motion picture industry and the American landscape.
Paramount Ranch is one of the oldest working movie ranches. In addition to movie making, there's plenty to do outdoors in this urban wilderness. Along the ocean, the coastline's rugged and the surf's up. We'll catch the Coast Starlight back in the city at LA's Union Station. Once aboard, you're in for another treat.
This trip from Los Angeles to Seattle is spectacular, the views you see. We have 125 miles of ocean front that we're leaving out of LA, and it's just beautiful.
It's onward to the coast, where a waterside lunch is one of the many highlights. Along with the scenery, there's one place to get pampered. The Pacific Parlor car is reserved for first-class ticket holders.
Okay, does everybody have a glass? And plenty of seats up here. We have tables available.
And it's time to pop the corks for a train tradition, a daily wine tasting.
We'll serve 3 wines today and then 3 different wines tomorrow. And then the people can purchase the wine if they like.
A cozy and plush upper deck recalls luxury train travel of earlier times.
I chose to take the train because I have never done this before, and I wanted to see what it was really like to have a perfect lounge to wait in. How nice was that? Complimentary beverages. And I wanted to check out my sleeping car right away and see how nice that was. And I thought, this is going to be so fun.
And one car is designated just for kids. The Coast Starlight makes several stops at small towns, so there's time to get out for a stretch.
You know, later on I'm going to prepare you kids for college.
Oh, yeah.
You know how I'm going to do that?
No.
I'll teach you how to make beds.
Klamath Falls, Oregon is the jumping off point to visit Crater Lake National Park.
The principal national park that is available on the Coast Starlight would be to get off at Klamath Falls and go the 40 miles into Crater Lake, which is how the Southern Pacific Railroad used to do it 100 years ago.
Crater Lake National Park was founded in 1902. A volcano created its centerpiece. The lake, famous for its shade of blue, formed some 7,000 years ago. Yet it's the crater atop Wizard Island that gives the lake and park its name. This deepest lake in the U.S. holds the world's record for natural water clarity. The Rim Drive has several overlooks for visitors to take in what one of the park's founders proclaimed a wonder of the world. Back on board, the Coast Starlight continues on to Portland, Oregon, where it stops at Union Station, a landmark listed on the National Register of Historic Places. To mark its 100th anniversary, the building received a $4 million makeover.
Station here in Portland dates back, original construction was 1896. Lobby was extensively remodeled 1929 to 1930. That's when they put in a elaborate marble interior on the walls and the fancy plaster ceiling with flower medallions and some elaborate looking light fixtures.
Leaving the station behind, it's onward from the city to the sea. Seattle is the end and beginning of this 1,400-mile line. From the depot, it's an hour-and-a-half drive to Mount Rainier National Park, where the park's namesake, a sky-high mountain, rises 14,410 feet above sea level to dominate the view. More glaciers can be found on this one peak than on any other mountaintop in the contiguous U.S., while some 10,000 of its annual visitors take on the mountain. Most see it from the road or hike the 240 miles of maintained trails. National parks, quaint stops, and a spectacular coastline make the Coast Starlight a great train ride.
Train travel is a journey. It's not just getting somewhere, it's a journey, and I think people love that idea.
You really get a feel for the landscape as you're riding along, looking out the window. You can see what the geology is, you can see the wildlife which is there.
National parks is all about preserving the heritage of America. It's all about preserving our natural beauty, our natural wonder. The train itself is one of the most environmentally friendly ways for a person to come out and visit the national parks.
The railroads were instrumental in creating the national parks over a century ago. Today, trains remain a way for people to still feel that connection, relive history from the glory days, and rediscover that one of the greatest assets of America is its size. And seeing it from the window of a rail car has rewards. It's about people. It's about adventure and going someplace special.